I quit drinking 600 days ago, roughly, and
Awesome.
that was one of the things that was hard for me because it was a crutch ever since I was probably like 20 years old when I went to college. It was something I used all the time.
That habit.
And in police work, it is an accepted bad habit.
Right.
Across the board. We protect each other. We make serious bad decisions when we're drinking, and I know guys can manage it. I was managing it. I was just not, it wasn't, I wasn't driving drunk with my kids, but I was almost, as my friend Greg said, RV Carnivore shout out. He was like, dude, you're microdosing all the time,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I was like, and I was like, man, how am I going to beat this?
Welcome to Kiltz's Carnivore Conversations. I'm really, really excited today to be speaking with Eric Reynolds, KetoFive-O fame. His background, a retired Boynton Beach police officer with 2 decades of experience. His career impact, experienced physical and mental health challenges due to his career, including weight gain, high cortisol, hypertension, alcohol use and abuse, PTSD, and heart disease. What was his transformation? He lost 50 pounds in 10 months on a ketogenic diet and an additional 20 pounds on a carnivore diet. Wow. Improved his overall health and reduced inflammation. Today, he focuses as a licensed sports nutritionist and personal trainer. His mission in life is to help first responders and their families improve their health through ketogenic and carnivore diets and more. He currently offers coaching services with personalized meal planning, glucose monitoring, physical fitness training, and health advocacy. He's been documented in Cops and Campers, highlighting his journey and transformation. The Cops and Campers event is an annual wellness retreat for first responders and their families held at Spruce Row Campground and RV Park in Ithaca, New York. I've been there. Much enjoyable. You got to go. Founded by Eric Reynolds, the event provides a supportive community for first responders dealing with PTSD and other health challenges, featuring activities like bonfires, socializing, and guest speakers. The first event in 22 was documented in a film highlighting personal connections and the event's impact. Eric, welcome. Thank you for being here today.
Thanks for having me, Dr. Kiltz.
We've become good friends over the years. I've been in the keto and carnivore environment, and I'm just really excited to be with you here today to share the energy that you've been exploding with because you care about other people. Tell us a little bit about your background and what got you into this space of keto and carnivore and helping others.
There's a lot to say. First, I grew up in Miami. I was the son of a female police officer in the 70s, which she's a pioneer. And if you guys ever want to see her, watch the show on Netflix, Griselda, the main character, Sofia Vergara, who's playing Griselda Blanco, the Black Widow. The star cop that takes her down, that character is based off of my mom.
Wow.
And it's pretty wild to see my mom's character on the show. But she put in all those good years and worked hard and provided the opportunity for me to go off to school at Florida State, go Seminoles, and ended up got into retail security doing that. And then finally got sworn in as a police officer around 2002. And I did about 18 years as a police officer. I did all kinds of different units, from community outreach to jump outs to working road patrol. And, in 2012, I was shot in the line of duty.
Wow.
After a car chase with a bank robber, and another officer and I were forced to put that guy down, and he passed away at the scene. And, and that's when part of the journey started, because the trauma from it and the weight gain and sorry. So
take your time. Please take your time.
So, gaining weight and having to deal with...
We're here together, my brother. I love you. I love you.
I was all prepared, and all of a sudden it just comes in waves, and this is part of the journey. So anyways, all right, now I got that out. Going through the journey of, I was already kind of a 220-pound police officer, so it was already kind of big, and I got tissue. I'm good.
Yes,
Yeah, I can't. It's not the first time.
Yeah, anytime we need to just stop for a minute.
Oh,
It's
no,
okay.
no.
It's all
It
good.
just hit me. So anyways, the weight gain, some of the trauma I was having, and, just trying to figure out, what do I do? You're trying to follow the standard American diet. You're trying to follow what everyone's saying. And at the same time, I had a child, and now we're trying to control his diet and what he should be eating. And, my wife is a hard charger, man. She went all natural. She breastfed for 3 years. She made an amazing little warrior, a little carnivore warrior. And, I'm so blessed to have her. And while looking at his nutrition, what was affecting him, like gluten and other things like that, it turned out she had issues with gluten, and it turned out to obviously be the grains and some of the other stuff. So that's where it started, looking at, just looking at our fridge and, our cabinets and all that, we were able to see, man, this stuff it's not good for him. Why are we eating it? And then I had Officer Joe Crowder pass away of a heart attack in 2016. He's a good friend of mine, and he had stents. God, it was fucking terrible. Sorry. So he dies of a heart attack, and I'm like, he's in great shape, jogging, doing all this awesome stuff, running around with his awesome dog, catching bad guys. And I was just heavy set, trying to just do my time to get out. So I got out in 2019, or decided to retire in 2019. I was about the beginning, I got started 2018. I started keto, late 2018. And I started seeing the weight dropping off, just managing my diet, meal timing, fasting a little longer, trying to just schedule when I eat and what I do eat. And, I pretty much went heavy. I always say keto because I went heavy meat, light on the vegetables. I always do the vegetable thing because I was guilty.
Yeah.
I felt guilty. I was like, oh, I'm supposed to eat vegetables. But the further I went into this keto world, I started finding, I started reading certain books and understanding about oxalates and the different things and how plants are trying to kill you, right? I'm like, oh my God, they are living little creatures and they have their own, the whole thing, defense mechanisms and, I just took a deep dive in it, and at that time, I'm doing my final blood work before I leave the police department, got to get all this done. And the classic line, right? Your LDL is too high. I was like 280 then or something. Oh man, I go, but I've lost 50 pounds. I'm like, I'm freaking kicking ass. Why? And now you're going to tell me I'm freaking dying, and well, let's send you for a calcium score, coronary artery calcium scan. I was like, all right, we can do that. And I came back, it's 1,500. And wow. I don't know, a lot of people know, but the max they say is 400. So, I'm already almost 4 times the amount. And my primary panicked. He calls me and he's like, dude, I got to get you into my cardiologist on Monday. It was, ASAP, right? Scaring the heck out of me. And I'm like, cardiologist? He's like, we might be talking stents. We definitely got to get you on a statin. It was just automatic, right? And I'm still like, oh my God, I feel fantastic. Don't tell me I finally found the secret, the fountain of youth, and now you're going to take it from me, right?
Right.
So I remember I went into the cardiologist's office and I actually recorded it, and he doesn't know it to this day. And we battled about statins. I'd already discovered, Dr. David Diamond's talk about statins. I already heard Ken Berry talk about some stuff. So I was like, wow, man, I'm prepared as much as I've ever been. And I'm so much more now. But at that time, I still knew I was an amateur. And I'm talking to him about, he's like, well, heart attacks have gone down since 1990. I go, yeah, but kidney disease has gone up, and he's like, well, that's a different conversation. I go, we're talking statins, right? It's the same conversation. So this kind of banter that would happen back and forth. And I remember I walked out of that office and I saw all these old guys in there. There were all old guys in there that looked pale, slow, like it was like pre-hospice, right? And I was like, I'm not going to do that. And I never went back. Those doctors, and I just started taking a deeper dive in my world, and I, obviously I found Society of Metabolic Health and I went to nutrition school. I got my little certification. At the time I was helping cops because they see you lose 50 pounds. They're like, how'd you lose 50 pounds, Eric? What are you, sick? And I'm like, no, man, I'm fantastic. I'm feeling great. And they nicknamed me KetoFive-O. You want to lose some weight, go see KetoFive-O in Evidence, right? So they'd come over and talk to me and I'd tell them, get off the Mountain Dews and get off the beer. And, cops, tough culture. You just can't take their beer away, right? So I had to go like, well, try some vodka, mix it with some sparkling water. At least you're not getting those empty calories or, and empty BS, the sugars. And it kind of stuck, and I started little groups. I started helping like dispatchers and, people in our records department and, other departments started, and it just started growing a little bit in my own little group. So obviously you go down the social media stuff, starting to collect people, right? Be part of your mission. You start helping people along the way, and then you join a couple other groups, and you start seeing it across the country, and you're like, oh my God, there's people losing hundreds of pounds. I lost 80 overall, and to see people lose 200-300 pounds, and then to see how they're feeling now, it's just tremendous, and that's pretty much why I'm continuing this path. And I left police work behind,
Obviously, our first responders and police, probably more so than anyone, have a tremendous amount of stress on the job. And it certainly is not easy. Do you think that the keto carnivore lifestyle helped you sort of see the stress and struggle differently? Because I know you're in a very supportive role today in cops and campers, and I see you out there. I really respect what you're doing. It's not easy, and we're supported and protected by the first responders out there. Can you talk a little bit about what's it like in the stress of that day to day, and how keto carnivore may have helped in that part of it, not just in the weight loss?
One of the things I regret was I never found the keto carnivore when I was still active patrol, driving around with my vest on and, having to deal with the public and having to deal with the heat and having to deal with food cravings and coffee, just trying to survive a 12-hour shift, right? That's a long time. When I was on an 8-hour shift, I could fast a whole 8-hour shift. That's why I tell a lot of guys, hey, if you can fast your whole shift and then go get bacon and eggs at the end of your shift together and then like Valhalla and high five with bacon, I think that's the way to go, or steak and eggs, whatever. So I discovered it as a desk job. So, it's really, after I was shot, I ended up putting in for evidence. So I kind of wrote out 7 years in evidence. I thought I'd fall back into that on the civilian side, get really good at DNA and learn how to whether crime scene would be a part of that. I don't know. So when the guys, I would say this, I know I got, even in a desk situation, I got one of those desks and I stood up. I was able to just be active, moving around. I was counting my steps. I started walking around, and I just think if I was more conscious of that kind of stuff when I was driving around in the police car, it affects our mood. When we're hangry and we go to a call and the poor someone calls us because they need help. And for most people don't ever call the police, unless it's an emergency. Right. I mean, you have those chronic callers that we all know about, but for the most part, it's the first time they're interacting with police unless they've been pulled over or been part of some bad event or something. So I always try to take that into account. Like, this big problem to them is big, even though to me it's insignificant to my whole shift. But you try to be a little more patient. But I think on the keto carnivore, man, I would have been firing. I would have probably been more motivated to do more reports because I would have been firing. I would have known what to write. I mean, I just think overall it would have helped the mental clarity, the sharpness. Driving around as a carnivore cop would have been, you're like a cat, man. You're ready. You're watching multiple things. You're not all, oh, we just had freaking, bagels and coffee, and now I'm sluggish. Drugged up. So I think it overall, obviously we all see cops. A lot of them retire heavy. They all retire with heart disease. They die, usually half of us die within 6 years of retiring, and those aren't good years.
What's the average age for retirement for cops?
I think I retired at 50, which is way early. Most cops, I think, retire, basic 60 years old, sometimes 55 if they're able to, get in early. See, I became a cop in my 30s. So I was about 10 years behind, like my brother, who was a cop for 30 years. So, timing is a little bit of everything. I was a little more mature in my 30s than I was in my 20s, not quite into as much of what I look like for all the girls. Like if I was a 20-year-old cop, I would have been like modeling with my uniform. I would have been like silly. But in your 30s, you're starting a family eventually. You just got to get more serious. But I don't know. When I started dropping the weight and then obviously managing my diet, I thought it was home free. I was like, man, that's it. I just got to manage my diet. I'll be 175 pounds. I can see my abs, and I'll just work on fasting to get rid of some of the loose skin that develop. When you stretch your body out, it takes a long time. And other things have come up, heavy metals and mycotoxins and Lyme disease. And there was all kinds of other things that started showing up when I got rescanned in 2024. I was at low carb event. And I heard someone say they reduced their calcium score. And I was like, wow, mine was 1,500 in 2019. I wonder if it went down or went up. I'm just curious. And my now cardiologist, or Dr. Philip Ovadia, was like, I wonder if, we talked. I was like, if I got rescanned, I wonder if it changed. So he helped me get the scan and it came back 4,100. I'm like, wow. And I never seen a score that high. So of course I took a deep dive, and I've seen 7,000 out there. And in some literature, I saw somewhere a guy with a 10,000 score. Now, I don't know if he was already dead or what, but at least I did see that number. So then I was a little concerned. I'm like, wow, I'm supposed to be eating right, but all this calcium buildup, and, was worried about, of course, the Widowmaker. I was looking at the different ones, and I had heavy calcium buildup on I think it's I don't know, it's the RDA or the RCA. I can't remember, but it was like 3,800 or something. So we went for heavy metal testing, and we did the mycotoxins. I came back very high in molds, all kinds of different alpha toxins in me and stuff. And then we had aluminum, arsenic, and mercury. And then every day I look at mine, brush my teeth, I got 6 mercury fillings in my mouth, right? And I'm like, hey, wait a minute. And the doctor's like, where did you get those out? So I went and got them out, went to a biodentist, had the whole contraption. It's not just go pop it out. Don't do it yourself. There's the live mercury that's floating around your body. And I had some detox from it. It was leaching, he said. It was going into my body. I had one of the weird things that happened was my right knee, which is always my good knee from playing basketball. My left knee was the one that always had tendonitis from being heavy. Of course, I'd beat it up. But my right knee swelled up like gigantic out of nowhere, and then the Lyme disease came back positive. So we were like, what's going on? Where have I been? And Lyme disease is a whole nother freaking topic if you want to go on deep dive about that. But, my son had recently tested for it and was suffering from it at the time. So low inflammation diet was huge for us. And I started thinking, how do I detox? How do I get this stuff out of my body? And we also see a naturopathic doctor. So I have them kind of mirroring each other, Dr. Avadi and her, and we're taking different tinctures and different things. My alarms are going off in my house all day long for different, I got 2 boys. They're on their special little serums, and it just made me open my eyes to other methods of, besides statins and other things like that. So my inflammation markers were great. I had nothing really out of normal. I was asymptomatic. I'm not running marathons. I do more sprint work and stuff like that. I'm not going to lie. I do think about it. I'll be at the gym and I start looking at the AED across the corner. I'm like looking around, who can use that thing, because it just creeps in your mind, especially as a first responder. I've had to do that. Try to bring people to life and watch them come back or die right there. So it's like, you don't want to be on that side of it, so I'm really, I quit drinking 600 days ago, roughly, and
awesome.
That was one of the things that was hard for me because it was a crutch ever since I was probably like 20 years old when I went to college. It was something I used all the time.
That habit.
And in police work, it is an accepted bad habit.
Right.
Across the board. We protect each other. We make serious bad decisions when we're drinking, and I know guys can manage it. I was managing it. I was just not, I wasn't driving drunk with my kids, but I was almost, as my friend Greg said, RV Carnivore shout out. He was like, dude, you're microdosing all the time, I was like, and I was like, man, how am I going to beat this? And my son got Lyme disease. So God gave me a path, right?
Yeah.
And I quit and haven't drank since. And he was it. He's what it took.
I just put it in my pocket, never been used.
He's been my strength, both my boys. They saved my life. I learned so much from them. They asked me questions. It's great being around them.
Yeah.
When I retired, we sold our house. This is one of those crazy side stories is sold our house. We got an RV. My wife's like, let's travel around the country. We never know where we're going to end up. That we might find some place that we call home. It might be Austin. My kids already fall in love with Austin. So we sold our house. That crazy people that did that when we started driving around, then COVID hit. We were already homeschooling. We had pulled our kids out, not for any political reasons. We just knew from our oldest son, who's a very active boy. They would call him ADHD, but he just needs it like a dog. You got to run him in the park and then you can teach him. You got to get that energy out.
That was me as a kid.
And that
Same
was me
thing.
when I think back. We used to
Yeah.
run around before school playing tag, and our parents didn't drive us. I either took the bus or I walked. It was a different age. And
Yeah, we walked or biked to school. That was like the best thing ever.
yeah, oh, that was the freedom, right?
Yeah.
And then yeah, so we start driving around these different RV parks, and I started getting outside of nature, in the sunshine and talking to trees and doing all this Zen stuff that my wife's into, and I'm like, yeah, whatever. And it freaking worked, man. It was fantastic to get out there with nature, to swim. And, we saw 5 Great Lakes in 2021. My kids got to swim in them. I never saw a Great Lake. And I got to see 5 with my kids. We're like, woo, this is awesome. So just an amazing experience to be with them all the time, day in, day out, teach them lessons, kind of the stuff my mom tried working her butt off. There's 8 marriages between my 2 parents. So there was a lot of growing up in Georgia, and I went back to mom for most of it, because my dad was just out of control, like most fathers. So, and, I grew up going to public school, eating school lunches. I've had, all those Kellogg cereals, all the Pop-Tarts, all the processed foods. And I could see by playing football, I played about 13 years of organized, tackle football. And it was gain weight, get big, carbohydrates, and that's how I ate. And then I continued to eat like that. Like a lot of athletes, after you're done, well, I still like the pastas. I like the pizza. I like bread. I like the sugars. And I never really changed the way I ate that much. And that's why I ballooned up.
Do you think that the pressure we're all living in a world of perform, and be like the other guy, and here's our standard way of eating or standard way of living, including alcohol, and even the lifestyle of our families, which many of them are broken up, and it seems like that's our culture. Do you think that carnivore lifestyle gives us a narrow vision and a more directive vision that helps us see the problems, eliminate them more easily?
Yeah, if anything, it helps you not worry about eating all the time.
Yeah.
Right? You're saving time. My kids can do a little bone broth in the morning, and then they're good for a little bit. Sometimes they'll snack on something we got, but for the most part, they have eggs, meat of some sort. My wife makes homemade sourdough bread. It's like, 3 ingredients, none of that other filler crap. And they use real ghee butter. We cook in lard, and I just see how we don't have any issues with them. I mean, we're so lucky. I mean, the behavioral stuff, the roller coaster, you see a lot of, we see it, we see my kids will be eating pork rinds, and I'll see a kid will be like, why are you eating pork rinds? He's like, because those Doritos are terrible. And the kids are like, really? And then they're like, Mom, can I get, pork rinds like, Killian or all
naturally sourced.
And I'm like, you guys have something. I go, you need to spread the word. So I have my kids already talking to other kids about stuff, not being overbearing with it, because my kids are very athletic. They're very active. They're very personable. And so they do talk to other kids. And when you're traveling around in an RV, you meet other homeschool parents and you meet other kids. And then weekends is, that's when all the public school kids, and you have this big diversion you get to see. And, they have a really big influence, and they don't realize it yet as they grow older, because they're going to be watched, and they're going to be pure, like untainted little individuals. But yeah, I think the meal timing is, you don't have to worry about as much what you're preparing. I don't know how I would send my kid to school now. I'd probably just send him, he'd eat a cold ribeye. Those are, that's how he is. And they'd be like, oh, they just call him like the meat man or whatever in school. And that's how he would be, and that's just a huge burden off. We stressed out so much about eating. We had to plan it out. The whole day was about going somewhere, right? It's such a waste of time. You can concentrate on so many other more positive things, right? Whether it's yourself, others, your kids, your family, your career, take the food out, just eat in the car on the right way to work. I used to do stuff like that all the time.
Tell us a little bit about your moving into podcasting and sharing in a more global way, and how that's been a factor in your life.
I did a podcast in 2017 about my shooting. I cried on that because I was really back into character, and that was one of the first times I ever talked about it. And then my mom did a podcast with those same guys talking about her being a cop and then her son being in a shooting. That was a totally different feeling, And here she's a big bad cop, and now her son's like in some stuff, right? So then when I'm sorry, I just lost my train of thought talking about my mom.
You're talking about your mom. We were talking about the transition to podcasting.
Oh, yeah. So she had done that. And I was like, man, she was so interesting, And then I was like, I should talk to more people about the shooting to help them because we have, tremendous suicide, fire departments, the police departments, dispatchers, anything communication, air traffic controllers, all this stuff. It's just tremendous. And I knew with myself talking about it, I battled workers' comp in 2014. I had to, they were okay covering my foot. They were okay covering, anything else that was physical, but they didn't want to cover the mental side. So I had to go before a board. I had to get a lawyer. This is a cop that got shot in line of duty, right? And the whole board was like, how do we, as my wife says, çok yaşa. Turkish means live well or something.
Yeah.
And
the whole board, go ahead.
So
might happen again. Who knows? It's good luck.
I forgot where I was at when that massive.
Oh, you just talking about the board that you were going for.
Oh, yeah. So I was in front of the workers' comp board, and they're making me cry. They're asking me, how do we, blah, blah, blah. What kind of symptoms do you have? And I'm like, Jesus, you think it's normal to get shot? And so they finally approved me to go to an independent psychologist. That guy came back and said, yeah, Eric needs help. Let him go talk to somebody. So I finally got the therapist I needed. No pills. I just needed to talk. And that was the start of it. I saw that Dr. Barnett in Palm Beach Gardens, Florida, for 2 weeks for a solid 5 years. Until I retired, I saw him. I still send him a message now and then, hey, what's up? But he saw my transformation from fatty cop to this rock solid, like, oh my God, maybe I should look into this keto way. Something's going on. He was, he bought the crooked science of, carbohydrates and fat is bad and all that stuff. So getting into the podcast, and I realized, hey, I can talk about the therapy of the carnivore diet or the ketogenic diet, how it freed my mind up in a lot of ways, and I was like, man, I can think about things a little differently. I'm not as depressed. And so I had it was just a coincidence. I saw Fat Fiction and I saw Doug Reynolds with Low Carb USA t-shirt on it. And I was like, Low Carb USA, .org or whatever it was. And boom, it came up. Hey, you want to join as a member? And I joined as a member. And I think I signed up as a practitioner. So I got billed like $300. I'm like, hey, I just retired. I don't even know what this is about. Can I just sign up for the free one or whatever? And he answered me in an email. He's like, oh, what's up, mate? Or something like this. I'm like, hey, Doug Reynolds, I just saw you in a movie. And he was like, oh, awesome. We started bantering back and forth. He's like, you should come on my podcast and talk about your journey. So I went on his, and ironically, it was episode 50, and I'm KetoFive-O.
Yeah.
And that was the beginning. I started getting on these shows, talking and just yapping and crying. And I found out how therapeutic it was for me. And then I get responses all the time, people reaching out. Hey, man, thanks for saying that, blah, blah, blah. Thanks for doing what you're doing. Thanks for, saying things that other people don't want to say, or, being just totally open, and then, you go to a campground, they tell you, take down your police flag, and then you end up starting a nonprofit called Cops and Campers for metabolic health. And, of course, PTS therapy of sorts, and with nature and community, almost like your Kiltz's tribe. Well, I'm having the Cops and Campers tribe.
Yeah.
And now they see me. They're like, how did Eric lose 80 pounds? Why is he he doesn't look 55 years old. He's bouncing around all these energies, making all these crazy videos. And I'm just trying to let them know you can do this, dude. You don't have to go out the route that all of our brothers and sisters have gone. Going out as a pre-diabetic or diabetic, you're already on medications. You need that insurance. Oh my God, we can't be, you know what? I haven't had insurance in 6 years. I spend most doctors will work cash pay. If you need, you can get a discount. And if you really see the true doctors that you want to invest in yourself, you just do a yearly whatever. You pay $1,500 for the yearly plan, which you're going to pay that in deductibles anyways with medications and paying for your health. Just invest in yourself. Just do that. And then you'll see the changes and you'll never look back. I mean, kids are different with insurance. I know you have injuries, broken bones, hospitals, and different things, but God, so many of my guys are worried about the insurance, and it would cost me $2,000 a month right now to cover my family. You know how many times I've gone to the hospital? Twice. The Lyme diagnosis, and then go get my chest scan. That's the only time we ever go to facilities. We don't need it. We're healthy. We don't get sick. It's amazing.
Cops and Campers, and this group you've developed. Can you tell us a little bit about the why and some of the stories of the people that have been impacted by this group?
Yeah. So, I had been suspended from a camping group. I won't say, but they're pretty popular throughout the country because of my argument with the guy about the police flag who told me to take it down. They were going to call the cops on the retired cop for having the cop flag. Doesn't make any sense. But at that 2021, nothing made sense. They were flipping police cars. They didn't like us anymore. I'm like, oh my God. So we ended up having a couple of rallies. I was getting a lot of support. I wasn't asking for it. I was a little pissed off, and I put it out there. Look, guess who's suspended 2 months, And then this campground owner out of Ithaca, New York, Scott, I don't know if he wants his whole name. Scott somehow reached out on Twitter, or he had his son do it, and he's like, hey, tell this guy he's got a free place to stay for a couple of weeks. Tell him to bring his camper, his flag, and his family staying with us. So I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. I go, honey, we got a place to stay since we got suspended from the other places. And we got there, and they happened to have a charity event. There was a bunch of cops there. They gave us a golf cart to drive around. I was getting challenge coins, and people are like, oh, you're the guy with the flag. No, screw them, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, Scott, we should do this all the time. We should have a little cops and campers rally. And at the same time, I'm starting to get other invites by other campgrounds from Cape Vincent to Ogdensburg.
Oh, wow.
We went all the way down to Stowe, New York. I mean, we would have never gone to those places. They weren't on the map for us. We're trying to go to Niagara Falls. Let's go to Maine, and the typical places that all these RVers go. And we got to see off the terrain, beautiful places, met some great people. Great cops were coming out, stopping by, like, oh, you're the flag guy. So I became flag guy. I'm like, KetoFive-O flag guy. I got so many things going on. And I was like, man, well, let's do it. So we started a nonprofit. And what we do is we try to rally up. I did 2 in Georgia last year, smaller ones. I call them pop-up cops and campers. It's like last minute, we find out there's 4 or 5 of us around, a couple more come, and now we have a little group. And last year in Atlanta, we were able to bring my mom, my stepfather, who were in Griselda. We got to bring over Grizzly Gwen Grimes from Naked and Afraid. She was an Alaska cop.
Yeah.
That had all the celebrities. So she was there. We had a couple of authors that came by. So all of a sudden, we had this massive knowledge of just cool police stories. And at the same time, what are we eating? Eating meat. We're trying to eat healthy. We're talking nutrition at the same time, and of course, it comes up who died. Oh, so-and-so died of a heart attack. So, you start understanding, trying to spread it down, and trickle down to the next wave. But at the campgrounds, what we do is we usually get together. We always are eating. We're always barbecuing. Saturday is our big event because we have the cornhole tournament. We got the live band. We have bounce houses. We got, tractor rides for the kids, rock painting for the kids. What we do is we really try to get the cops there to decompress a little bit and get around their families because you're not getting that. You're too much in the grind. Your kid's got softball. Your kid's got basketball. You got to go there. Your wife's going here. You're just never at home. You're never present. And it gives you a chance to be present. And we're in nature. Who doesn't love camping for the most part? I mean, we're not tent camping. Some people hate that, but I'll tent anywhere or camp anywhere. But it was just, you just start to see it. And guys are like, so you just drive around? I go, yeah, we do this every weekend.
Nice.
Doesn't mean we're partying, but we're hiking. We're seeing nature. We're moving, and people are like, well, how do you afford it? Well, a lot of campgrounds, you can stay there $700 a month, which is cheaper than a mortgage, cheaper than paying your rent. So you're able to go 700, you know what I'm saying? You can bounce around. Some are higher than others. So you can, it's totally manageable. How do you eat on the road? Well, we go to farmers markets. First thing we do is ask locals, where's your local farmers markets? And we look up, there's resources out there. You can find, raw milk out there. You can go to grass-fed farms. There's websites I'm not going to promote, but you can go there and try to find local farms doesn't have to be organic, and you can find it. A lot of your stores still have, you can technically get the trash at Walmart if you had to, but yeah, you can get that if you have to. So it's not that hard. And like we were saying, when the meal planning is not your major focus, we just make 20 burgers and we have them ready to go for the next few days. They're frozen, and that's it. Let's rock and roll. Let's go see the world,
Yeah. Yeah. Of all the interventions you've seen in your years of working police force and afterwards, and even the psychological treatment that you went through, is carnivore sort of just taking it all to another level more so than anything you've ever seen?
It's made me realize my potential in a lot of ways. I could have been doing, of course, we all have regrets about, I could have done this differently. I could have eaten differently, and maybe not poison myself. But I know it took me out of the rat race. I didn't worry about having the jet skis. I didn't worry about having, I was in Miami, right? So, or down near Miami. So everyone's got boats and you gotta have this big house. And it's just like, oh my, it's so exhausting, and when we let that go, materialists, any materials that we really didn't need, we minimalized everything. My wife was starting off with tree houses and little tiny houses. And I'm like, can we at least get an RV or something? She was like, all right, let's do it. So yeah, I can't believe what I'm doing now, 6 years after I retired. I don't even know that old me in a lot of ways. I mean, it's still me to the core, the same kid that was, a fat kid and worried about his belly or worried about taking his shirt off because all the other cool kids were able to do it. All that stuff, that peer pressure I didn't need to grow up with. My kids are never going to experience that. They're going to be confident kids, and not just because they look strong, but they're mentally just strong and with it. And that's what's happened to me. Yeah, I get, emotional because of the trauma and stuff, but some of the things I've seen with different people, what they've gone through, it empowers me, and I empower my kids. They empower others. My wife if she ever comes on and starts actually talking to people, I mean, she's the freaking home run, but we'll get her on another day. God.
We got to do that. That'd be awesome.
Yeah. It's just, I've helped more people doing this than I did ever as a cop.
Yeah.
I'm not getting killed. Unless you talk to Dr. Shallow or somebody that says I should have my, LDL under 40. I'm like, get out of here. That'll be in the morgue.
I think that's sort of the point I've seen. I know for myself, ADHD, OCD, depression, anxiety, sort of lifted, gone. And realizing that I grew up in LA, kicked out of school in a gang, couldn't read, father in jail. And a lot of what I realized is that all of that was likely due to the plant-based, cereal-based, low animal fat diet and all the cookies, crackers, chips, and all the things that went along with it, along with the sodas, and realizing that our brain is damaged like our body is damaged from what we breathe, drink, and eat. And the majority of what we've all been eating through our growing up, I'm 69 in 2 days.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm 19 again, and it's been the most radical thing. I'm almost 15 years carnivore, and realizing that not only my body ache, and I thought sort of all this sort of anxiety, depression, and migraines was just sort of normal, but when I eliminated the plants, I was a new person. And so ultimately, are we simply poisoned by plants? And maybe even the post-traumatic stress disorder is all a lingering effect from the plants that with the strength of a lion and a lion's diet, a lot of it may have been more easily experienced.
Yeah, one of the things that's happened is because now my body's able to concentrate on other things because it doesn't have to digest food all day, right? I mean, you're wearing out your digestive system. That's one of the first times when I thought about the metabolism, right? They were like, oh, you got to feed it every 2 hours. So all day long it's working, all the time. I always think of it as a machine. You're going to wear it out, right? And then you hear about all these diseases and cancers, but I know that I was detoxing while I was healing, right? A lot of stuff was going on, and so I get another CAC score, 5,600 now. In a year, it went up 1,500 points. And now I'm joking around, calling myself KetoFive-O. And I'm wondering, because I fasted more this year. I quit the alcohol a year and a half ago, roughly.
Yep.
So all this healing is going on. And I'm wondering with the fasting, I don't fast for 2-3 days. I'm very active. I pay attention to how I feel. And after about 24 hours with my, I drive, I got to do other things. I work a security job. So I'm still trying to keep myself in it. I don't want to be, if I was able to get 3 days just to chill, which I don't even know what that's like, I would probably be able to do it. But I think I'm really getting into some deep cellular stuff in my tissues that I'm burning through, like the extra little sagging fat in the skin. I think it's good eating that away, and it's releasing a lot more shit. It could be the Kellogg's cereals I had from 13 years old. It's still the first fat I ever put on is what it seems like I'm going through right now.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if that's elevated a lot of these other issues going on with it's more healing going on, and the Widowmaker score went down a few points. So, I mean, to me, I'm like, well, it's going in the right direction. My body knows what it's doing. It's healing.
Mm-hmm.
The body's magical. It's
Master.
crazy. And my liver has never been better. And my testosterone went from 400 to it's 792 right now. So I was 49 and it was 400. I've become 55 and now it's freaking almost 800. And you ask my wife, I'm chasing her around, howling at the moon, man. I was like, man, I would have had a bunch of babies if I was running carnivore earlier. So it's awesome.
Are we poisoned by plants?
Absolutely.
Are plants required in the human diet?
Nope.
Is exercise and or motion and moving really what we need?
Absolutely. You got to pick stuff up and move it.
Got to do something.
Got to do something.
Yeah. Lift.
I do a lot of resistance training. Calisthenics. I started standing handstands. I never could do handstands. All of a sudden, I'm like holding it for like 5-6 seconds.
Can we do a handstand here?
Yeah, we could.
We'll find a place. We'll get it. Is the complexity of the science helping this, do you think? Or is it we're getting back to our simple roots?
Well, we're getting back to our simple roots in a way we primarily were supposed to eat, right? And with the crooked science out there, don't even get me started. I want to use RICO laws to bring down all these FTA scumbags, these pharma people that profited from all of us being sick. There's so many companies, so many people that are involved in this. So that's one of my things one day is just be able to do the KetoFive-O search warrants and we just show up and start taking these guys down. We know who they are and they know who they are. Sitting back in their, big comfy little recliner as we're eating this poison so they can get their freaking pedicures,
Well, if you think about all the criminals and the suicides and the illnesses and the diseases, they're all related to our diet. And so all the people that you're working to put away actually are sick and are committing crimes because of the diet that we've all been eating. Nobody intentionally wants to do those things, but the brain gets damaged. And when you eat a plant-based diet, not only are the plants poisonous, plus they're drugs, heroin, cocaine, marijuana, nicotine, caffeine, highly addictive, but we're fermenting in our gut and making alcohol. And so ultimately, when you think you're not drinking alcohol, but you're still on a plant-based diet, you're making it. Our children are going to school with alcohol in their bloodstream because they've been consuming a plant-based diet. And then they've probably been given probiotics, but the bacteria, yeast, and viruses are everywhere, but we're basically making alcohol.
Yeah.
And so rather than blaming the human being, we realized that the story we've all been taught was to keep us controlled, weak and meek, peasants, prisoners, slaves, and soldiers.
Yep.
And ultimately, you're here to share something in simplicity. And you've simplified your life. You simplified your nutrition, the food that we're consuming, and getting back to our ancient roots. I call it the primal mist. We all came out of some very primal mist. We're ancient hunters.
Mm-hmm.
And as a hunter, we didn't hunt kale, Brussels sprouts, broccoli, asparagus. They didn't even exist in our evolution thousands and thousands of years ago. And so I'm just curious a little bit about the your nutritional certification and how you're going out and helping share the simplicity of carnivore.
Yeah, I'm a hands-on person. I like to be involved with the person. I'll go grocery shop and we'll cook.
Yeah.
I'll do, one of those KetoFive-O search warrants on your cabinet. And I tell people in the RV parks, they go, well, let me come. They're like, oh, we try to eat right. And I'm like, all right, let me come look at your pantry. They won't let me in. If you can't show people your food because you're embarrassed, that's a problem, right? And all I know is I was pretty much looking back at my diet my whole life, it's pretty much plant-based. That Salisbury steak in the TV dinner, guess what was in there? Mashed potatoes, the little cherry pie, all the other little things on the side. I was always eating plants all the time. And then eventually came more and more plants all along, and once I got off the plants, I retired from police work. I found a brother through 23andMe as a cop that RV'd. He taught me how to RV. My mom gets a show on Netflix. I lose 80 pounds. We start traveling the country. I start a nonprofit. I start my KetoFive-O company to help first responders. I'm doing podcasts. I'm meeting guys like you, which is
And
still
I'm meeting
crazy.
guys like you.
And I'm like, what is this like bizarro world? Because it's just like, so many good things have happened, along the way to put me in this position, like dodging the hurricanes that came through last. We were supposed to be in Tallahassee. Now I'm in Alabama. I mean, that's what's great about this life is sometimes you just pack up and leave. I'm not tied to the job. I'm not tied to a house. I'm free, brother. I am free.
Cops and Campers documentary. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, my buddy Patrick Shaver did a documentary called Officer Involved, and it was a really sad situation, that documentary. But he's done a bunch of these. He won some awards, but I met him we did a rally in 2018. That's when I really first saw myself at about 250 pounds. He had filmed us called Cops and Cabins. We took 8 cops, went to Blue Ridge, Georgia. We rented a cabin for 4 days. Some of us knew each other, some of us didn't. We had a guy come from Texas, a guy, I think, California. We had Patrick who showed up. He was coming from Maine at that time, or Georgia. So we had all these different cops, and they interviewed us all about different things, how great this was to be together, pros and cons, and after seeing myself in that video, I was able to see how fat and sick I looked. And that's some of the pictures you see when I'm, bald headed and I'm at my worst. And it's because of him putting in the video. He didn't realize, he just thought he was doing the right thing. So Cops and Campers is coming up in 2022. And I said, Patrick, you should come to Cops and Campers. Just come enjoy yourself. You're a retired cop. You're freaking doing filming and gaming or whatever he's doing. He's like, hey, I go, maybe you can film some stuff, just, a reel or something. I was thinking, you know what? We could do a little short documentary on it like we did for Cops and Cabins. And he came out and, we had some donations. Some people helped us and we funded a little film that he made. And he got to interview different cops and kind of sit back and watch us mingle. And, and he put into a 30-minute little documentary and talked about the journey, the flag incident, how we got suspended, how Scott showed up and said, hey, bring your family here. And then how it's just turned into this little camping movement, and we got so many cops part of it. They want me all over the place. It's like you want Utah, California, Michigan. I can't be everywhere with, it's a lot of miles to be pulling your rig, but we're definitely trying to do for sure one in Ithaca every year and then move it around to different areas and just I want to bring you guys into the fold, bring you guys out there with your rigs, come camping. We got cabins. We can do tents. We can do yurts, all kinds of crazy stuff.
Community. We've lost our communities. And I think our evolution was our small hunter-gatherer communities, but then we created a sedentary communities, but now we're in a constantly moving communities and never in any one place for very long. And so it's broken up. Tell us a little bit about the Cops and Campers community and how that sort of mirrors a little bit the carnivore community.
Yeah, there's that energy you get when you're all around each other. You're a safe space. We all have our battles, right? Everyone's got something going on. And, in our culture, in the cop world, it's always job related for the most part. It overlaps into your marriage or multiple marriages. It goes into kids. And, so a lot of cops I meet restarted families after they screwed up the first one, and they're happier now, but they still have a lot of regrets from, not being able to manage their stress. That's for some reason, we just like to just push the envelope in our career. If you're already riding high all the time and just go, 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 what do we do in our personal life? Go, 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 right? Girls, fast women, fast cars, alcohol. It's the same story. So getting away from that and getting back in these safe spaces, and you're able to cry with somebody else. You're able to just share some BS funny stories. We used to have a question of the day, like, what was your worst moment as a cop? Those are really pretty bad. But then we have, what was your funniest moment as a cop? And everyone thinks it's one thing, but it's always something, the last thing you think of, and it could be as a rookie or as driving. I just got my police car and he pulls out and he hits the sergeant's car. First day on the road, and we were laughing, and that's what it's about. Just getting, like you said, that little community. And for some reason, when we're in our own department, we don't like to talk to each other. But we'll go talk to a guy from another department and share him our whole life story. And I think one of my bosses told me a long time ago, we lost a lot of the mentor programs. There's not somebody there to help you along the way like a coach. You almost need like a cop coach to help you along. We have FTOs, but they let you free. But then after a year, you're on your own, bro. You got to figure it out. And I think that's what happens with diets. You're trying to figure out how to lose weight, how to get healthy. But with our communities and our networks, all of a sudden you got somebody to look up. You got someone to follow. You got somebody to even, I get asked questions. People are like, oh my God, I can't believe you answered me. I'm like, yeah, dude, reach out.
Do you think social media has really expanded our ability to talk to someone, listen to someone? Just listen to someone that's gone through it, whether it's in the keto carnivore side or it's the stress of our life, job. You can find someone right now on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook that's gone through what you're suffering and has found a way out. What are your thoughts on social media versus, hey, I got to get to a therapist, but I got to get a line, but talking to someone is not so easy?
I think it's to each his own with provolone, but I know with me, I learned so much information and it was a jumping point for me to research more. Whether it's parasites or Lyme disease or different things that happened to me along the way, from the cholesterol. Like I didn't know a calcium score. I didn't know that until I got one and they told me I was going to die within 10 years. So I'm 6 years into that, still kicking and screaming. They ain't going to take me at 10 years. I remember the cardiologist telling me, got a 9% chance of having a heart attack. I was like, so a 91% chance I won't? He's like, yeah, but if you got a room full of 100 of your friends and 9 of them aren't there, I go, but 91 are, brother. I'm not going to freaking sweat. I'm going to honor those 9, but I don't plan on being 9. He was trying to make me just freak out about that 9%. And now it's 33. I guess it's just going to keep going up. Like, well, eventually he's going to go before this 10-year period, 99.9, I don't know what it's going to be. And
those are 9% of people that never changed their lifestyle. But took a drug, and we don't even know the real numbers in that.
Right. It's just, I have found that I thought I knew a lot, and the more I learn, the less I know, because I am just floored at how the healing of this diet and the simplicity of it, the benefits of it is just mind-blowing. And I wish more people could experience it. And we try to get people along the way. Everyone has their own journey. What's 100 carbs a day down to 20 or no carbs. We all have our own way to go.
I don't measure. I don't do testing.
I did in the beginning when I was fat. I was really tracking.
Well, that's standard because we're in our standard life tracking.
Yeah.
My CAC score was 6 something. And then when I did my CT angiogram, it was 700. I did my stress test. And ultimately, I got one narrowing of the circumflex. Everything else looks great. My numbers look great. I feel great. And when I say my numbers look great, I have high cholesterol and high LDL. And ultimately, my parents lived to 94 almost. My grandmother 104. Although dementia, Alzheimer's, all sorts of other issues were there. And I believe that based on this lifestyle of carnivore, that my risks are lower. I believe that. And I always say belief is number one. Because if you believe what the doctor says, then you live that. But if you realize that there's something greater, our mindset, and the carnivore lifestyle just changes our mindset. And then I would not have known you without social media and these connections. And I have developed great friendships in social media, but it's still great to come to the community and get to meet people in person, because I think that's our true nature, because we're not meant to be locked up in a box. We're meant to commune.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome to be at these events and you're seeing people telling their 2-year story. They're 2 years in it.
Yeah.
And now I'm 6, right? And you've of course been so many people longer than me, but I'm like, wow, I'm kind of getting older, longer in the tooth in this world. And it's awesome to see this new breed coming through, and it's trickling down to the kids, hopefully, that's our future.
What would you say to a first responder suffering from PTSD, physical problems, and they don't know where to go?
Well, that's when you got to have a real talk with yourself. What do you want in life? Obviously, this isn't it, right? So you got to make a change. 2 things I know that cops hate is the way it is and change. right? So what are you supposed to do,
You're
right?
stuck.
Pull up your big boy pants and look at yourself, and really you can control which direction you want to go, and it's hard. If you got to retire, guys are stuck. Their wives have a job, they can't retire. Their kids are in school, they can't retire. I mean, you're stuck. But when you start looking at the alternative, of dying young, a slow, miserable death with pharmaceutical drugs in your body, and then decaying away, and then mentally losing your capabilities and not being able to interact with, I mean, is that what your goal is? Or is it to be happy? Sometimes we hold on to bad relationships. One of the biggest decisions you can make is, who are you going to freaking partner up with in life? And I don't think we take that seriously enough. We get stuck, and it's convenient, or you settle, right?
Mhm.
And I think a lot of us have settled, and we're stuck in these horrible situations. And guys I know in my career, all the cops were divorced for the most part, and I would give it up. I gave it up. I left freaking $500,000 on the table to walk away.
Wow.
And save myself.
Yeah.
And to save my relationship with my kids and my wife and myself. Because the other way was just going to be, going down the typical route. I'd probably have a pacemaker eventually, open heart surgery. And then, after 10 years of medical intervention, I'd be dead, and that'd be my legacy, right? I mean, it's horrible.
So you hate where you're at, and you hate the thought of changing. And so listening and learning to someone like yourself, KetoFive-O, Eric Reynolds, is a great way to make a change.
Follow me. I got doctors. I know practitioners all over the country.
Yeah.
They can see you virtual. Like, my mom's stuck with going to an actual physical doctor in the office. You don't have to do that anymore, people. You can actually see these guys you see on a reel. You can actually
All
see
virtual.
them.
All virtual.
All
you don't have
virtual.
to go anywhere.
It's amazing.
Yeah. And do you need a doctor? Because I didn't learn from a doctor on keto carnivore. And I also learned that faith in the highest power within all of us. I imagine in some ways the first responders are gladiators. They have that physical sense, but they have that mental sense to get there.
Yeah.
But are we missing the spiritual faith sense also, that we are capable in a community having faith in God? You think that's something that we should all look towards? And I'm not saying necessarily religious God, but there's some power within all of us because we're brothers and sisters.
I think a lot of the cops, we get lost. We question God, because it's the things we see, and you're like, why do I have to go through this, or why do I have to see this, and it's hard over a whole career trying to manage that and still have faith, right?
Yeah.
But, you got to think about, I married, my wife's Turkish, right? I was raised Catholic. I ended up marrying a Muslim, even though she's not like practicing, but, she's spiritual. And
it's all within us.
It's all within us. And it opened my eyes to religion in general with her, because she's got another perspective on things. And I was so ignorant before, so much I didn't know, not just diet, stuff culturally. I was stuck in my own little, grew up in Florida, would go to Georgia, and, I knew a few guys that went somewhere, and, what I think, unfortunately, with cops, firemen, for, obviously emergency room personnel and ambulance drivers.
You mentioned ATC also. That's a big one.
It's hard, guys, but when you get out, you can find yourself again. You do, you pay a little bit of it costs a little bit of you, a little bit of your soul to get that pension because of the stuff you see, but you can get it back. You can find it, you'll never forget it, but you can manage it. And best thing that happened to me was the keto carnivore way, because I was able to manage my symptoms, and I learned how to dance with it, and it's not longer taking the lead. I'm taking the lead. So, I mean, that's one of the perspectives I have on that.
So investing in community and connection with others that have suffered is a really good way to sort of figure this journey out.
Yeah, that's what I did. I joined a Facebook group of keto people. I didn't know any of them. Started seeing pictures, saw some questions. Like, what do you guys do for this? And you get some answer. I'm like, wow, should have known this before,
What's the difference between keto and carnivore and what it's done for you?
So the keto was pretty much getting me off the processed packaged stuff. It got me to pay attention to the ingredients and what am I cooking in, what am I putting on my food, whether it's ketchups and, extra stuff that I was doing.
Yeah.
And then once I was pretty lucky. So once I retired, I was able to commit to more carnivore because I wasn't having a meal plan, like go to work, bring in, I used to make these like cauliflower casseroles with meat and cheese and just, and eventually I just eliminated the cauliflower just in meat and cheese.
And what happened?
Oh my God. And then I lost another 25 pounds quick, shredded. And I was like thinking I was getting too skinny there for a while because I hadn't seen myself at 175 pounds. So it was like 8th grade. So I'm going back to when I was like 13 or whatever it was. And I'm like, that's why I was mentioning burning through my 13-year-old fat storage, and how interesting that is. And yeah, it's really crazy that nutrition is so simple and so positive and so effective in your decision making and your motivation to do things. It's really just,
Is carnivore diet good for everyone?
I would say it's probably not good for everyone. I mean, overall 99% carnivore or 95. I mean, we all have our different, you can survive on purely carnivore.
Well, ultimately, are we different physically?
You mean each one of them?
Cellular.
Oh, not on a cellular level.
We're not.
No, we're all the same.
We're the same cellularly, right?
I was thinking like broccoli gives you gas. Some people know.
But ultimately, we're the same. We're lions.
Right.
We're temples. Treat yourself like the lion, the temple, like not the amusement park or the pig. Ferraris, not Yugos, I always say. And so it's for everyone.
Yeah.
And is it for children?
We feed our kids probably a 95% carnivore diet. There's some blueberries in there, frozen blueberries, sometimes some pineapple. But you know what? It's not in a can. It's not in a yogurt.
Syrup.
It's no syrup. It's all just simple ingredients, real food.
I love it. Eric, is there anything that I haven't asked you that you really wanted to make sure we share with
I would like my first responders out there really look at their heart health, because that's not only number one killer for everybody.
I would say heart health. Heart health.
Yeah.
Heart health, right? Right.
Because that's what's, I always tell them, you study, you go to school, you learn, all your statutes and you know how to arrest somebody and write an arrest report, write a search warrant. But most of us don't know how to read our blood work. So simple.
Uh-huh.
You can put on YouTube how to read my blood work. You don't even have to put in keto. They may lie to you on some of the things they tell you, but at least it gives you a start. And you got to become thorough in invest in yourself, in your diet, in your health. It's you, man. It's you. You're looking in the mirror every day, brushing your teeth, looking at yourself, going, wish I was different, or I wish, you can do it. And I'm telling you, the keto carnivore way is just, you can't go back once you get it. You're not going back. You can't eat that stuff anymore. I can't tell you the foods that I can still taste in my mouth, just driving down the road, I know almost every one of them. And I am ashamed of how much fast food I ate growing up. I didn't even realize how bad that was for me.
Fasting. Do you practice fasting, or what are your thoughts on it?
I practice, I don't know, sometimes I'll do a liquid. I'll have a little coffee or something in the morning, which will technically break my fast, but it's I'm not eating food usually for about 24 hours, roughly, and depends on travel. And if I love traveling without food. It's great. Don't worry about it. Yeah. See all these people stuffing the stuff in their mouth. I'm just sitting there like, all right, I can go another 6 hours, whatever, the fasting's been really interesting. My wife used to fast as part of her culture, or actually her family did. I thought they were crazy. What are you doing? Fat? You don't eat. That's crazy. You're starving yourself, and then I understood how they did it and some of the reasons they did it. I don't always agree with why they do it or their timing, I think they fast throughout the day and they eat at night. I'm like, why don't you just flip flop it? but it works, and I find that the energy level is not on par when I was a little heavier. That's the thing. When I had more fat on me, I could just ride it a lot longer.
Yeah.
But I do feel after a while, I'm like, all right, that's that point where my body's either going to transfer over to start burning, the autophagy and stuff is going to start happening now, or I'm going to have to eat a little some because I'm making dinner. I'm going to start cooking steaks for the family. How am I not going to eat one of those steaks?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I am still looking to explore that. And I'm wondering if the fasting added to my raised calcium score on some levels. So I'm a little skittish about doing any longer, like any 72. And I hear people all the time, I feel amazing. I'm in it. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm just worried about, I don't know. I'm trying to control the calcium a little bit here. And I don't know if I should I don't know if that's contributing to it deep down, Yeah,
I do 3 to 5 a month, 2 to 3 days a month, 5 to 7 days quarterly. Never felt better. I typically one meal a day at night. I think fasting is our natural experience in evolution.
Makes
because
sense.
Hunting, you aren't going. There's nothing. I mean, go out and find food right now.
Right.
There's no stores, there's no farms, no ranches, there's no nothing. You're looking for
cannibal.
And there's no fences to keep the herd wherever you want them. They're going everywhere.
Yeah, they chase them down.
So I think it's spiritual. It really builds the mindset, and it's something hard to do. And that's why I think it's a good practice. Everyone could do it, but we start with our mind that I can't do it. But our liver is where most of the fat is stored. But I shouldn't say most of it. We have plenty of fat in our liver, but it's all over our body. And, it's the only fuel and only building block for your body is fat.
Yeah, I didn't realize how fat my head was before.
Yeah.
Also, I was like, wow, I got fat everywhere.
Can you imagine, the question is, how much fat do we really have? If you look at someone that's really gone through starvation, concentration camps, or the experiments they've done, they're mighty, mighty, mighty skinny. Skin, bones, and muscle. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, they don't have the bulk muscle from someone. It's because they lose energy. They begin to shrink the muscles because they atrophy from lack of motion. Any questions you have for me that I didn't ask?
The one thing I was going to say, I've had a lot of surgeries and dental procedures throughout my life, back surgery, and don't forget, that's a lot of chemicals going to your body also.
Yeah.
So if you're wondering, why am I testing high in some of these poisons? Look at your dental history, because I've had root canals, I've had crowns put in. So just be conscious of that. And I would just say, really, you got to love yourself.
Got to love yourself every day.
Hopefully. And if you don't, reach out. You'll find people that care about you. Come to one of our groups. You'll see. You'll find somebody.
Would you look at that camera and say that?
Come to one of these groups.
And you got to love yourself.
That's
one of the most important things. You got to love yourself. And you got to love yourself first as you love everyone around you. But love yourself first. That gives you the power to help others.
Yeah, I think people struggle with that. But they can do it.
Well, it's kind of, we've been taught that it's a little egotistical, and yet in an airplane, you got to put your oxygen on first, because otherwise you can't help your neighbor. And that's the same thing. Love and help thyself first.
Yep. And look at the people you want to be like.
Yeah.
If you want to be someone who lost 80 pounds, find those type of people and find out what they did. If you want to just clear your mind up, you want to get rid of certain issues you have, whether it's personal or physical or, mental, there's people out there probably have gone through it, and there's a way for you to at least find some information on it.
Where can people hang out with you and find you online?
Yeah, KetoFive-O.com or anything, hashtag, anything at KetoFive-O is me, and also Cops and Campers. And, we do have a nice little group started, Keto Keep, and that's going to be a nice little platform for us to spread our network with other influencers like myself that have their own little groups, and we're all kind of combined.
Love it.
Into one, and it's going to have like so many awesome people part of it. And, it's just to help you after you start losing weight. Now you have a support team with you afterwards, so you're not just wandering around, well, I lost all this weight and now I'm lost. And now you got somewhere to go.
Do you take care of non-first responders also?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because every first responder is married to probably a non-first responder. I mean, a lot of them are married to the same, but, at these campgrounds, of course I meet first responders, I meet military, but, I meet construction workers, and I meet school teachers, and, you meet nurses, and, you meet everybody out there that needs the help. And I can see it, man. It's like, you remember They Live when Roddy Piper put the glasses on and he could see all the aliens, and you take it down. That's how I walk around. I see all these people that are metabolically sick. You can tell they're inflamed.
We see that.
You see it all the time, and I can't stop. Sometimes I just want to say, don't, but you can't save everybody.
Right.
And me being an empath, it's hard. You're always like, you just want to like flip their carts over and say you're killing yourselves, but that's not going to work at that time. They've got to figure it out themselves, So.
Last comment?
I will say the biggest thing that's been part of my journey is the family. They have been, really, your family loves you, man. They really do.
Yeah. Awesome. Bless you, my friend. Thank you for being here. And I encourage everyone to check out Eric Reynolds and KetoFive-O. He's an awesome guy, and I learned much from him.
Thank you.
When's the Cops and Campers in Ithaca?
July 10th through the 12th. You'll be there the 12th. We got a big bonfire the 11th. The 10th is just a meet and greet, show up. We're going to have like bacon and eggs and, typical stuff. And, we got some hiking planned. We got all kinds of fun stuff. There's a big pool there. So, it's July, right?
Yeah.
And what I tell you, all you guys working overtime, July 4th, because that's when you make all your money. That following weekend, take your family to Cops and Campers. Come visit us, decompress.
It's going to be awesome. I look forward to seeing you and everyone else that's going to be there.
We need to roast a pig.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Let's do it. All right. Love you. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Appreciate you.